Well, hey friends, and welcome back. I'm so glad you're here. If you are new here, welcome. My name is Megan. I'm so glad that you've stopped by. I do want to go ahead and let you know that, as you can probably tell by the title and thumbnail of this video, this is a part 2. So I have a card here on the screen. If you want to simply click that, it'll link you over to last week's video where I started sharing a little bit of our story. So my husband and I met in around 2015, so that's kind of where it all starts, and part 1 of this led us up to the fall of 2021, early 2022. So that's kind of where we'll be starting out here. If you recall, I left off the last video by letting you know that we found out we were going to be having our second daughter, Annie. So that was quite a surprise to us. It was not in our plans. We thought that we would maybe have another kid like a few years down the road. We wanted there to be a few years of an age gap, but not so much that like the girls couldn't, or the children at that time, we didn't know what genders, but the children couldn't, you know, play together and interact and go through school together and those kinds of things. But as per usual, the Lord had different plans, and I'm just going to start out there with us finding out that we were expecting another child, and that will really jumpstart us for the 2 years that followed. So I remember whenever I first kind of had the hunch that I was pregnant with Annie, I was standing on our back porch while Nicholas was working in the backyard, and I just wanted to eat strawberries. And I always have liked strawberries, but I remember during my first pregnancy with Rosie, I was so drawn to fruits and water, like just anything that hydrated. That's what I wanted. That's the exact same taste and refreshment that I got from eating strawberries on our back porch that day. And I don't think that I said anything to Nicholas. I think it was just kind of a thought that crossed my mind, and then I let it go a little bit. And he was in law enforcement at the time, so he had SWAT training, or SWAT school, I believe, all the next week, which meant that he was working crazy long days. I mean, he would be at work at his normal time, which was around 8 or 9, and then he wouldn't get home most nights until 10 or 11. And so I really didn't have a chance to talk to him, but I did have a chance to find out that I was pregnant. So once I found out, I took the test and saw the faintest second line on that test, and I sent a picture to my best friend. I was like, is this what you see, or am I just seeing things? And she said, no, that's certainly a positive test. So I took another one just to be sure, and it came back the same. So then I just kind of had to sit on it and think about how I was going to give him this information, because he was going to come home just super tired every night. I mean, we had a really hard time in the newborn phase with our oldest daughter, Rosie, and so he was not going to be thrilled whenever I told him this. And I just had to figure out the timing. I was praying about it, and I was trying to process it myself. So then one night he got home a little earlier, like I think around 8 o'clock, and I had stashed the positive pregnancy test somewhere, like in a lunchbox or something, that I knew he wouldn't find them. And we were laying on the bed talking after he'd gotten home, and I said, I'm going to go change the laundry from the washer to the dryer. And when I came back, I brought the test back and was like, so by the way, we have some news. And not at all casual, probably not the best timing, but it was just eating me up, and I felt like I was being dishonest and keeping things from him, and I just needed help grasping the new reality of what was to come. So he was in shock. He thought that I was kidding, which is why I brought the test in hand. And it took us both a bit to digest that. Like, I had known about it a few days more than he had, so I was already excited. And then for him, he's still just like, it's so fresh. So while it has always been a blessing, Annie has always been a blessing from the start. When we first found out about her, she was just unexpected. And so it threw us for a loop a little bit. I mean, we were not planning on paying for 2 kids in daycare, and there was just a lot of unknowns that came with this that had not been thought through by us. Obviously, the Lord had went before us and prepared a plan that we had no idea about. But for us, we were just, you know, very thrown aback. The pregnancy that I had with Annie was very difficult physically and mentally and emotionally. In a lot of ways, it was challenging, but I was very sick. I was very nauseous and other things. So I think we made it about 11 or 12 weeks before we ended up telling my parents, and how we did that I have no idea, because we saw them so often. Like I said in the previous video, they lived on the road right behind us, so we saw them all the time. Like, they would come over and do weekly bath times with Rosie, our oldest. And so I mean, I think I just chalked it up to being tired, because I found out that I was pregnant in September or October, I believe. And so it was just like colder weather, winter was setting in, days were getting shorter. I think I kind of used all that as the excuse, and then like long days at work. So we told them around 11 or 12 weeks, right around the same time is when we told Nick's parents. We were living about an hour and a half or 2 hours away from them at the time. So we FaceTimed them. We were like, we do not want them to find out from anybody else. We needed to let everybody know from us that needed to know from us. And we FaceTimed them, and I'm pretty sure Nicholas told them we had some big news, and then he ended up telling them we were moving to like Wyoming or something crazy. And while he would love to do that, they knew that he was full of it. So everyone was excited. We were all just kind of enjoying knowing the information ourselves. Like, it was just kind of staying a family thing and close friends thing for a while. And then Nicholas and I started having all these conversations about the cost of daycare and if it was worth me even working. And like, I had always wanted to stay home, like I mentioned previously. So our goal was kind of, whenever we had 2 kids, it would justify my paycheck not coming in. So the cost of daycare would come very close to, you know, balancing that out. I would still be bringing home a few hundred a month, but I wasn't making a ton at what I was doing. I was working tons of long hours, and it was just, you know, it wasn't ideal. So this was kind of our mindset. However, we figured we would be further along in life, have things a little more figured out. But when are you ever gonna have things more figured out? I'm learning. So we just got very serious about it and said, okay, well, this is what we're gonna need to do. And we decided that I would start staying home full time not long before Annie was born. We actually changed the date a couple of times, but anyways, we decided around probably December or January that at some point before Annie was born, I would start staying home with Rosie full time in order to help me and her kind of get a rhythm going before introducing a newborn to the situation. Nicholas is always, like I said, more financially savvy than me. He thinks things through. He thinks about the long-term retirement, life insurance, like, you know, taking care of our family after we're gone, all of these wonderful, amazing things. So he had already kind of been thinking through the numbers, realizing that we really didn't have anything else that we could cut out of our budget to make it easier on us in terms of being a single income family. The Lord had been so gracious to us that we, at this point, had already paid off all debts. The only debt that we owed was our mortgage, but even just with that, and like, we didn't do a lot of, you know, frivolous spending. We really have always been boring people, didn't go out and do stuff a lot with friends or anything. We've just always been grandparents at heart. So he was just looking at it and thinking, like, how are we going to make this work? So one evening he was kind of talking some of it through with his dad on the phone, and his dad mentioned that they had some rental properties. Their rentals weren't really going well. Like, the tenants weren't paying. They needed a lot of work, and they just weren't really sure like where to go next with those. And so somehow they came to the conclusion that that was a possibility for us, that one of those rental homes could be our home if everything lined up, if everything worked out just right. And so we took the next chance we had to come over and take a look at one of those. We really didn't plan on moving back to Nick's hometown until way later in life. We had talked about moving here one day whenever we retire, like maybe we'd find a good chunk of land and build on it and come back to be closer to his family and all these things. But, you know, at a minimum, like 5 to 10 more years is what we had planned. And so then whenever we were strongly considering it, we were kind of like, well, this is different. Like, it just took a lot to wrap our minds around the reality of this. Not to mention the fact that my parents had just moved less than 2 years prior to that to be so close to us. And now we were planning or considering moving another hour and a half away from them. And then my grandfather was very sick at the time, and not that we lived super close to them, but we lived about 45 minutes away versus 2.5 hours away. So there was just a lot of things that didn't seem like they were going to work out, and we were just pursuing the Lord in it and hoping that he would make it very clear for us. We were asked to give Nick's family a definite answer by the very end of January, and that's exactly when we gave them our answer. We told them yes on January 31st of 2022. And then a couple of months later, the renters had moved out, and we came over to do like a for real walkthrough with his dad to see what all the house was going to need before we could move into it. Renovations started in March. I quit working full-time, started staying home with Rosie full-time in April, and then Annie was born the last week of May, Memorial Day weekend. We moved a week to the day after Annie was born. Somewhere during all this time, my parents found a house that they liked over here, purchased it, so they moved the week before us. Like, as I was having Annie, I think they were in the process of moving. And then exactly 2 weeks after Annie was born, 1 week after we'd moved here, my grandfather passed away. So my grandmother ended up coming to stay with my parents for a while. And then about 8 months later, she ended up renovating a mobile home that was on the back side of our property. It was also a rental where the renters vacated it at the same time that the renters of our house vacated. So it had been sitting empty for a while, and she had a construction crew come in and fix it all up, make it more suitable for her needs and her style. And so she lives on the back side of our property now. We all kind of found local churches that we were plugging into after quite some time of searching. Nicholas and I had never had to find a new church. As many times as we had moved, there was always a campus of our church within the town that we were moving to, and that was always something that we considered. But moving back closer to family was very desirable for us, and we knew that the Lord would provide the community, the Christian community, in addition to our family community, as he saw fit. So we just trusted him blindly in that, and knew that a good God would not let his people go without community, because that's what he's created us for. And then, of course, the shocker of a lifetime that none of us ever saw coming, but that made all of this make so much sense, was when last August my dad passed away very unexpectedly following a knee surgery, very routine operation, and just completely blindsided all of us. And to know that we were all here together to get through that, I mean, that was all God. We may have moved here to cut down our mortgage, or, you know, to be closer to all of our family, but the ultimate reason, like in the very nearsighted view, was made very, very clear at the end of August last year. Like I said, we moved here a day after Annie was born. A week later, my grandfather passed away, and my grandmother moved here with us. And then 14 months later, my dad passed away. And that doesn't all just happen by chance, and it's not easy to go through, no matter where you go through it at. But like I said, we have a really, really good God. And when we looked back on how he worked everything out, how it was so unexpected, we can see that every step of the way he was preparing our hearts and preparing the people around us for exactly what he knew we would need. I wholeheartedly believe that the unexpectedness of that pregnancy test coming back positive in the fall of 2021 was preparing us for the unexpectedness of August 2023. And who knows what else, but the Lord knew that through all of these decisions and my husband's wonderful stewardship of our home and the decisions of our family, that we would get to a place of being surrounded by all the people who love us the most in the times when we needed it the most. And I think he also, like I said in the other video, has been preparing my heart for staying home through the waiting. And now that life is that much more precious to me, and the relationships that I have with the people around me, I just value them so much more, and see the urgency to enjoy being present with the people I love and that I've been blessed with. I feel like it makes such a difference in my homemaking and in my family life. I'm by no means perfect, but it gives me perspective in each day, spending time pouring into my babies and preparing meals for my husband and spending afternoons eating ice cream or going thrift shopping with my grandmother and the girls. Like, all of these things I just see as so precious and so vital and important in ways that maybe I wouldn't have before. But even though a lot of what I've mentioned is the big stuff in life that God has shown up in, a lot of it, I hope you hear, is that through the everyday mundane and waiting and desiring and the Lord not yet answering like I was wanting him to, all of that was representing the Lord's faithfulness as well. What love is this? He is such a good God, such a good Father, and has provided so fully and so beyond my heart's deepest desires and biggest wishes. You have enjoyed hearing our story, especially if you have taken the time to watch both of these videos and kind of relived the past 6 or 7 years of our lives with us. It's been super fun for me to share this with you. I'm very excited to continue sharing and for you to come along as our family continues to grow and continues to go through life hand in hand, and just ready to take on whatever it is that the Lord has planned for us. But I hope you're having a great day wherever you're at, and I'll catch you next time. Bye, guys.